Okay, so I just started recording. Thank you for coming. Oh, well, thank you for, taking your time to do the interview. I know that, like, as college students, we're pretty busy, but, thank you for taking your time. So I'll just begin by telling you the purpose of this interview. Um, it's basically getting a college student's experience during the pandemic and before, I think. And so I'll just explain how like I'll be using the data from this video. Although we won't be using the video, we'll just be using your audio. Um, it will be transcribed into like I will be transcribing what we will be saying for my assignment, and also it'll be posted on a discussion board. So my professor, my TA, and other students will be able to see the data that I gather from this interview. And yeah, so I would just like to get your consent, to do the interview. Like I know you said that you would do the interview, but I just want your consent, your oral consent, and also um, for me to do the recording as well, if you're comfortable with that. And if you could say like, yeah, I am comfortable, or however.
Yes, you have my consent
Okay.
to record and video record.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So now I'll begin asking you some questions. So the first questions are about about life before the pandemic. So thinking back to a year ago, February 2020, how would you describe being a student at that time?
In 2020, it was rushed. I would, I have to drive to my school. So then when driving, I would have to go from here, commute from LA all the way to Burbank. And that's like a 35-minute drive that I had. And sometimes I would catch traffic, sometimes I wouldn't. It would depend on the day, but it was rushed, I would say. So I would rush in the morning to get to my 8 a.m. class, and then after that, sorry, 8:30 class, and then um, I would I would be taking 4 classes in person. So then the
Okay.
workload was a little bit more than what I'm doing now. Um, I would do my class. I would have my lunch there. I would have breakfast, lunch, and then early dinner over there because I would leave like around 5 o'clock. And the reason I would leave around that time is because my my schedule was a little bit spread out. So then I would have long breaks in between classes, which I didn't like because I felt like I was wasting my time there,
Hmm.
like wasting that time instead of doing something else. And so I would leave early, come home a little bit late, which I didn't like. Now that I'm here, like now that today, comparing it to today, I can say I didn't like that kind of lifestyle.
So you would say that you spent like most of your day at school?
Yeah, most of my day at school, and again, a lot of my day was taken up uh, in between those breaks between classes. Yeah, that's something I didn't like.
Did you do anything during those breaks? Like, were you mostly studying, or were you in campus activities, or with your friends or something?
Yeah, I wouldn't study as much. I would uh, mostly just hang out with my friends, or from time to time there would be like they would be playing live music, so we would go to that, or there was a gym there too, so I would go to that. But I haven't been there in a while, so
Okay. So now, like, you to think back when you first started hearing about, the disease COVID-19. What were some of the first things you remember hearing about it?
I started. I remember hearing COVID-19. There's a new sickness, you can say,
Hmm.
and what what made me concerned was that my school wasn't really taking any action. They were just we just kept going as if nothing was really happening, and classes were still going. But what got me a little bit like nervous was that Harvard started closing down uh, in-person class meetings, and then after Harvard, I think Stanford was starting to close down in-person class meetings. But my school was still going on, and it wasn't about up until like probably 2 or 3 weeks after they heard that those other schools were doing that, that we also like started doing in person. I mean, online classes. So that when I first heard that COVID was going on, I didn't take it serious as much. I thought it was something like the swine flu or the Zika virus. Like I thought about it like that. Oh, it's not here, so I won't really get affected by it. Yeah, it's going on in New York or it's going on in Washington, but it's not really gonna affect me here. That's what I thought.
Okay, yeah. So where did you hear from it, or like where did you get your information from? Like,
Mm, just like Twitter and the news and my school's news as well.
okay. So how, if at all, were you thinking the pandemic would affect your daily life?
I didn't think it would come to this point where I would have to be taking classes from online, from my computer.
Right.
Um, but sorry, what was the question again?
Like if at all, were you thinking, sorry, how or if at all were you thinking the pandemic would affect your daily life?
No, I didn't think it would affect my daily life. I thought that class would continue as usual. Uh, I didn't. I didn't think that that schools would have to be shut down, and I didn't think it would get to this extreme.
Okay. Um, when did you begin to realize the pandemic was serious?
Hmm. I took it serious as soon as the governor and the mayor were starting to get a little bit worried about it. The governor and the mayor were starting to say, "Okay, start closing down." And that's when I started taking it seriously. I know that other people didn't start taking seriously until they got sick. But I doing my own research and checking out like what the coronavirus was actually about, how it gets spread and stuff. I started taking it seriously until after the mayor and the governor started mentioning it more. And also I started seeing how cases were rising, especially in New York. So seeing New York, seeing how my government officials were behaving, that made me kind of wanting to take it a little bit serious just so that I wouldn't get sick.
Okay, thank you. So now I want you to think back to last spring when campuses and cities were shutting down. What do you remember about that time? Specifically, like when things started to shut down.
Um, I remember we were like on campus, everyone was normal. I didn't see much of a change or anyone really worrying um, about the virus, and 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 what happened was that we were all in school. It was normal as usual, but it wasn't until we got an email from the school saying that classes weren't going to be done in person anymore. I do remember it was around our finals time. So all finals were postponed at my classes. They were postponed and until until we were able to figure out how to do our tests online. So that's what I remember. It was like kind of like in an instance everyone go home, no one show up. uh, you'll get more information online, and that's what I remember from last spring.
Okay. So during this time, were you working, or how did your working situation change?
Yeah, I was working at the time, and so what happened was that I was work. So the month before, we were really really busy, and my job especially interacts with. I have to interact with people. We have to we have to make sure like the people are comfortable. We have to communicate with them in
Yeah.
person. We like have to shake their hands. We have to write down their phone number, give them a pen or something like that. And I remember the month before we were really really busy, and then that was February. Come in March, everything was starting to slow down. A lot of people were canceling their meetings. A lot of people were canceling their events, and there was just this. I remember there being this one meeting though that that was still going to continue. And what they did at work was they just set up hand sanitizer stations, and people were acting as if like the virus wasn't real, like oh this too will pass. um, they were acting that way even though the governor had said something, and this was after school. My school had said everything's going to be online now. Like the people there were acting as if like oh this is going to pass, and acting as if like next week everything was going to be back to normal. um, so then i I saw that dramatic change happen quickly, and then everything started slowing down at work to the point where my boss was like, "Hey, you know what? Until further notice, we're not gonna be working um, anymore until everything clears up and everything like opens up again."
Okay. And so did your living situation change during this
Yeah,
time as well, or how did it change? Or if
yeah.
it did at all?
My living situation definitely changed. Um, I was I'm in school. My brother, he's from San Luis Obispo, and well, he goes to school up there. And I have two other siblings that are in. One is in middle school, and the other one is in high school. So usually we were like my day would be like I wouldn't see them. I wouldn't see them throughout the day because I would leave early and I would come back late. So I wouldn't see them until the evening. Um, but through this situation, everyone came back home. My brother came back down from San Luis Obispo. My siblings weren't in school anymore, so they came here. And I mean, they weren't going to school in person.
Mm.
They came back. And then we all had to adjust to living together through the day, and we had to adjust to sharing, and even sharing like sharing our time. So every like the way that I adjusted. or the things that I had to adjust to was living with my family again, seeing my parents like through the day, seeing my siblings through the day, and not just that evening, sharing a meal with them, breakfast, lunch, dinner with them. That I had to adjust to, but I realized that it was actually nice, and I was missing out a lot by leaving throughout the whole day.
Okay. So, from my understanding, you're saying that you lived at home originally and then others just came back, right?
Yeah, I lived with my parents, and then my brother came back from from school from San Luis Obispo. He moved back in, and we all had to live together. And it's kind of difficult because we're all like there's seven of us in the family, and the seven of us have to share a pretty small space. So we had to adjust to living with each other in this small area.
Yeah. So, since you didn't move, would you say that you had to adjust like your physical living environment around or it how did it change? Sorry. Um
Yeah, I did have to adjust my living environment. Um, the one thing that has changed, like my youngest brother that goes to school, to middle school, he has PE, for example, and I can hear him right now in the background. He does PE in the living room, and my sister also goes to school, but she can't do her work in the living room because my brother's doing it there. So she has to do it in the bedroom. And since I share a bedroom with my siblings, like I can't like have my computer out loud or anything. So my bed uh, has my bed is now my working area. It is also my sometimes my eating area, and it's my sleeping area, which is something that I had to change in order for everyone to have space. And then my other brother like does his work in the kitchen. So those are the things that we had to adjust to, which kind of sucks, and it's kind of really hard to do.
okay.
Yeah.
So for since that was a big change because you were first, doing all your work at school and staying at school the whole day, and then you came home,
Yeah.
and that's how it changed. Okay. So how did the pandemic affect your household? Did it take any did you take on any additional responsibilities?
Thankfully we haven't been like there's been some sort of income, and thankfully we've been able to eat every day and drink water every day. Like everything that we need, we have electricity, we have water, we have what we need. Um, the Sorry, can you ask the question one more time?
Um, how did the pandemic affect your household? If it did affect your household, did you take on any additional responsibilities from maybe one that you didn't have like before the pandemic?
Uh, I don't I don't think things have changed. Like I said, thankfully everything we have, we've been good. We've had everything that we needed. Um, I've just been helping out my parents a little bit more with like the bills and the groceries mainly. Um, but other than that, I feel like nothing has really changed. I don't I don't feel like I'm babysitting my brothers because they're doing their own thing and I'm doing my own thing as well. Well, maybe the cleaning part. We've been doing a lot more cleaning than usual because we're all home, and so it gets a little bit more messy, and then we have to clean a little bit. So that's the only thing. But other than that, I don't think my responsibilities have changed.
Okay. Um, how was your transition to remote instruction?
Mm, at first, I thought I would be able to handle it, and I thought I was doing well. I was motivated. I was taking a class with one of my friends, and that really helped me like take the class together so that we were like always keeping each other on our toes and pushing reminding ourselves like hey there's homework due or hey there's an assignment due. But after that I finished that class, like online learning is really really hard for me just because of the way that I'm living and just the lack of motivation that I have to go to class and to do any work. So remote learning is not, I learned that it's not for me, and then I realized that too. Like I know that I went throughout the whole day, I was the whole day in school, but that helped me with my grades, that helped me focus more, that helped me pay attention more because I was going in person and asking the teachers questions there on the spot, whereas right now I have to teach myself a lot of the things, and it feels like I'm watching YouTube videos because that's where my teacher records it, but it doesn't feel like I'm going to school. It feels like I'm doing it on my own, which I don't like.
Yeah. So you would prefer, uh, I mean, in-person classes then?
Yeah.
So thinking back to the spring or early in the pandemic, what were the things that you worried about the most?
And the things that I worried about the most were like parking. I worried about parking, food. I worried about, yeah, paying paying my bills and but the one thing that I did worry about was the stress that I was going through, because I remember last spring, I would, like I said, I was in school all day and then I would go to work every other day, and that would bring a lot of stress because I was constantly moving, and I didn't feel like I was resting as much. So that was one of my biggest worry, the stress that I was putting on myself
Did you do anything about that, like to take care of yourself, or did you do anything about the stress?
during the spring.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think I did. I think I just told myself, hey, just keep on pushing.
Okay. Is there anything about that time you'll remember positively?
Yeah, the friends that I made, the the things that I learned, um, and just the friendships that I had with people. That's what I'm gonna remember the most because now I it's kind of hard to make a friend online because everyone like it it's just different.
So were you able to make friends during like early pandemic?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was. I was able to do that, and it was actually pretty easy because we would I'd be able to say like a little joke or a little remark, like a little something funny, and then people would laugh, and then it'd just be easy to make friends. And there would be this dynamic where we go back and forth, back and forth. Yeah.
Okay, so now I have some general questions about the pandemic and its effects on different aspects of your life. Have you or anyone close to you gotten sick with COVID-19?
Yes. My family has gotten sick with it.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So at first we thought it was in. I thought we weren't gonna get it, to be honest with you. But then my mom. It started with my mom, and she got sick. And as soon as she got sick, everyone in the house was like, "Oh!" Everyone took a step back and started wearing masks inside the house. Once my mom got sick, uh, my dad started getting sick, and then after they got sick, we were starting to feel a little bit ill. So as soon as we felt the symptoms, we went to go get tested. Um, I when I went to go get tested, I tested negative for COVID, but then my siblings tested positive. except for my older sister. Her and I were the only ones who tested negative. Meanwhile, everyone else tested positive. Um, but during that time, everyone was in bed. There was this whole week where everyone was just out. No one was making food. No one was. It was like kind of hard for us to eat something, to drink water, to go out. Nobody wanted to even get up, and that's what happened. And
You
like,
mentioned out. Um, you meant like going outside
yeah,
or
going outside for groceries or going outside for to walk the dogs. Like nobody wanted to go out to do any of those things.
oh,
Not to talk with other people or to hang out with other people, but just to get our things.
okay. So you said you tested negative, but you were still surrounded by your family who was positive?
Yeah. So I again like the area that we're living in is kind of small. So then I thought it was kind of strange that I didn't test positive, but I was still feeling the symptoms. So I went again a second time and I tested negative the second time as well. And so meanwhile everyone was resting, like I felt I didn't have anywhere to go to. I felt like I didn't have because my like I didn't have anywhere to like just do my own thing because my I shared a room with my siblings. Our my bed tripled up as a eating area, a sleeping area, and a area to do my homework. So all I really could do was like put my blanket over my head, and that was my privacy because there wasn't really anything I could do or anywhere I could go to.
Were you worried to get infected?
Yeah, I was really worried because again, we were all living really close and I was feeling the symptoms. And not only that, like I was worried to get infected because my I have some friends who sadly passed away from COVID and some whose I have another friend whose mom passed away from COVID. And that was my biggest worry. Um, my parents catching COVID. I thought
Yeah.
they were doing really, really bad, and I thought like, oh snap, like God help us, you know?
Yeah, I understand that. How has the pandemic affected who you were able or willing to spend time with? Like other family members, friends, partners?
Um, I don't really have any family members here. They're all in back in Guatemala where my parents are from. With other friends, like it was very, very limited, um, limited time with them. I, I did go out once to go eat breakfast with one of my friends, but after we had breakfast, I told her, you know what, I don't think this is a good idea because we're out in public. I'd rather stay home. So her and I, we just, what we did instead was eat breakfast in the car and just hang out in the car. That's what we did.
Did it impact your relationships at all?
No, I don't. I don't think so. My friends are pretty like understanding, and they're not ignorant to like the situation going on.
Okay, yeah.
They're understanding, so they too felt the same way that I did.
Okay. Um, how has the pandemic affected your mental health or well-being?
Hmm. My well-being. So I feel like I'm less stressed now. One because I'm not working and I'm focusing more on school. So I feel that I'm putting less stress on my body. But my mental health, I think the pandemic is messing with my well, the situation is messing with my mental health because staying indoors for such a long time. can drive someone crazy. So what's one thing that's been like worrying me has been school. Just because there's a lack of motivation to go to school, to go to class, to do any work, like the parts that I've been worrying about have been, oh, how am I going to finish school? Will I be able to do these assignments? And instead, what I've been doing is instead of facing that, I've been procrastinating, which I know is bad, but there's just like no motivation to do anything.
Yeah.
And, and that's, I feel like that's where the pandemic has has challenged my mentality, because when I was going to class in person, I feel like I'd be able to. I felt like I was able to attack the problem head on.
Yeah. Um, Now I'd like to ask you some questions about our current moment. So what is your current living situation?
I live with my parents, and so it's my parents and five siblings, so it's seven of us. So it's me. I have two brothers, two sisters, and my parents, and we have two dogs.
Okay.
Mhm.
Are you working now, or what do you do?
Right now, I used to be getting unemployment, but now I don't. I'm not getting it anymore. Um, so right now, I'm just doing school.
Just okay. Was your job affected by the pandemic?
Yeah, we're thinking that we're probably not going to open up until 2022. That's what I've been hearing a lot of talk about that until next year.
So when you were working before the pandemic, what was your favorite? I'm sorry, 1 second. What was your favorite thing or thinking about this job? Sorry, I'm gonna skip this question. Um, so how are you finding being a student right now?
I think I think I've been watching a lot of TikToks. That's what's been happening. And there have been a lot of people saying, like, if you want to for example, if you want to get a Google certificate, Google is doing it for free. Or if you want to learn something, like all the online courses are for free. So being a student right now, I feel like it's a little bit unfair, and that I'm like sort of being taken advantage of by my school, because I still have to pay tuition. I still have to pay for my fees even though I'm not going there. So like I don't understand the reason why I'm still paying for an education that I'm getting online, which I can receive. Like if I wanted to do school online, then I would do it some other way instead of spending so much money. But I feel like being a student right now sucks, because we're not getting the full grasp
Yeah,
of our education. And instead of receiving a bachelor's, like I feel like maybe I should receive my a Google certificate, or something to get a job somewhere else.
yeah, okay. What kinds of social activities are you comfortable with these days? I know that everything has changed. Um, but what social activities are you comfortable with?
Um, I don't know. I'm not sure, because I don't really like to FaceTime. I don't really like to video call. So to say, um, probably just go on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok and just watch videos. That's my social
Yeah.
life.
Um, how has this changed since the pandemic started?
Like I said earlier, it was easier to talk to people in person. It was easier to talk to, make friends, and like now it's a little bit more difficult because when you're texting, it may sound one way, but when you're speaking, it may sound. But in reality, it may sound. They may say it with a different intention. So like as opposed to when you're talking to someone in person, like you kind of understand like, oh, what they're trying to convey or how they're trying to flirt, for example, because of the body language or the or the words that they're using, as opposed to like through the phone, like you don't really understand like what the person is trying to convey because there isn't that additional body language factor or environment that you're in. Yeah,
So
that's
you would say that you're not involved in as much social activities as before.
yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay. What was the most recent thing you've done that's been fun?
I went to the snow, so that's the most recent thing that I've done. That I went to the snow, not with anyone else, just with my family, and
Can you tell me about that?
yeah. Although there were other like we wanted to go on our own, but right now going to the snow is really popular, and a lot of people have been going. So uh, there was still some sort of social distance, but uh, there were a lot of people over there, and that's kind of something that I was nervous about because I didn't think there would be so too many people up there,
Mhm.
and I thought we would be more like on our own. But I had fun going there, so
Um, are there any new activities or habits that you've picked up during the pandemic?
yeah, I've been cooking a lot more. I've been, and one thing that I really like doing is grilling. That's something that I experienced through this. And one thing that I got to cook was a brisket, and
Okay.
I'll do it. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it even better than last time. So that was cool.
Did you learn this during quarantine or days
Yeah.
after quarantine?
No, I learned it during quarantine,
Oh,
and I learned how to grill, and I learned how to cook the meat.
that's interesting. Um, so now I'll ask some questions about the future. Um, and that includes, the COVID vaccine. Um, can you share your thoughts about the COVID vaccine? Do you expect that you will get one? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't done as much research on the COVID vaccine, but I would like to get it just because it's a it's a we get vaccines in order to protect us from viruses such as this. And I feel I I imagine like as soon as I get the vaccine and as soon as everyone else gets the vaccine, things will start to change. Um, so like, are you asking what I want to do after or?
No, just your general thoughts about it.
Mm,
Um, if you would get it right away, if you trust it.
yeah, so I'm not like I haven't done as much research. I would like to get it, but I would also like to see the some of the side effects that people are experiencing. From what I've heard, like not a lot of people are. There have been some side effects on people, but it's like the people who get those side effects, though, that percentage is really it's low. So I would like to get it. I would like my family to get it as well, in order for us to just be a little bit more safe, feel more safe. And the people that aren't getting it, the people that are saying that that that's how the government tracks you, or through the vaccine, or the people that are coming up with their conspiracies, like that's funny to me. But then at the same time, like It just shows that there's concern
Yeah.
about a vaccine.
Okay. Do you like what do you think your family members think about the vaccine?
My parents have expressed like they want to get the vaccine as soon as they can, and my siblings, they haven't really mentioned it at all. But if my parents get it, most likely my siblings would get it as well.
Okay. Looking ahead to when the pandemic would be over, um, what are you most looking forward to?
I am looking forward to finishing school, and I am looking forward to starting a new life. You can say, because through this I've experienced like I didn't like how I was living my day to day life. So after the pandemic, I'm like starting now. I'm looking for ways that I can live the life that I want without having to have the stress of the old one that I had. And I'm looking forward to seeing my friends again. I'm looking forward to traveling again. I'm looking forward to going to the sporting events again. Everything, going out to eat. I'm looking forward to all of that. Um, but mainly my life, like how I want it to be different than how it was before.
Okay. Okay. So what do you hope your life will be like 3 years from now? Obviously the pandemic is over and yeah.
3 years from now, I want to find a way to have my have my income be steady. Um, but 3 years from now, I want to be spending more time with my family, like I have experienced now. I want to also be traveling with my family, and just because I've experienced how necessary it is for me to be with those that I love. And the reason I say that is because since I've seen how my friends have had their losses,
Mhm.
it's just made me appreciate life more than work, appreciate life more than school, more than like other things. So like being with those that I love, and even though it may not be as much, even though like there aren't any like riches, um, just being with there, it's like through this, it's made me appreciate um, being with them.
Do you think that came well, I heard you say earlier um that you wanted to spend more time with your family. Just when the pandemic started and everything, it changed things for you. So do you think that the way that you see your life 3 years from now kind of changed because of that?
Yeah. Before, I would say like I want to be the CEO. I want to, or like I remember I would say that, or before I would say um, I want to be working at the biggest enterprise or the biggest business, and those fat cats, I want them to be taking care of me. I want them to be giving me the money. That's what I would say before. Like I felt I was really driven by making money for the future instead of enjoying the moment that I have now. Like yeah, I'm gonna still continue to pursue my goals, but I'm not gonna let my goals get in the way of what I have right now, because then I'll be missing out on what I have right now and probably regret it in the future, and then I won't be able to enjoy either. So that's how my perspective has changed
Yeah.
in this
Do
time.
you think that because of last year, you would be more prepared in the future years if something else were to happen similar to the pandemic?
Uh, yeah, I would just, yeah, like for example, if I was if I was a dad already and then there was a COVID 30 came along, right? And my kids were worried, I would just, well, beforehand, I feel like I would teach them to enjoy life right now. But secondly, I would also teach them to be prepared for any scenario just in case. But yeah, I think if this came around once more, I'd be more prepared and it both like financially, sorry, I'd be more prepared financially, mentally, physically, spiritually, all those areas because I've experienced it already.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to remember this time?
I do want to remember this time, but every day feels like the same day.
Yeah.
So I feel like right now I feel like I'm wasting time a little bit because every day seems like the same day to me since I'm in the house. But I do want to remember this time, just because again it's a learning experience.
Right. Um, is there anything that you feel particularly proud of?
Yes, my cooking skills have now increased, and I'm proud of that.
Okay. Um, is there anything else you'd like to share with me that that I haven't thought of asking you or
Um, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to ask?
um well, since we were talking about the pandemic a lot, and you said you would get the COVID vaccine, I wanted to ask if you would still continue to use your mask
Oh
even
yeah,
if you got the COVID vaccine.
yeah. Like one thing I do know for sure is that once once everything's better, I know there gonna be those people who want to roam free and want to do whatever they want, just like before. But I even after even after the getting the vaccine, and if everyone gets the vaccine, I would still wear a mask just to be cautious. And maybe like everyone else says, oh, but everyone's cured. It's just some sort of security for me that
Yeah.
makes me feel more assured of me going out. Because even right now, I saw something on Twitter that was saying wearing two masks is now like
Yeah.
it's now recommended. And I thought, oh snap, if people are wearing two masks, that means double the layer, double the protection or something. Then if things open up, I would definitely still wear a mask. And well, one thing that has also changed is that before, when walking on the same sidewalk, if someone was coming the opposite end and I was going straight, um, I would sort of try to avoid them and not really make eye contact with them or speak to them. Like hey, good morning. Like nah. Like my parents taught me to be respectful. You say good morning to people, even to strangers when you, well, not to strangers, but to like the neighbor when you're walking by. But now I've had the opportunity to just wear a mask and walk on the other side of the sidewalk without seeming rude because I have a mask on because of this whole thing.
Yeah. So we talked about the before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now the future. Um, I wanted to ask, as a college student, do you sorry, like how do you think you would do in your future, like if you are continuing your education? What do you think, like how do you think that this will help you, or how what kind of student do you see yourself being?
I feel like after the pandemic, if I go back to school, I would I'd be more motivated and appreciate like going to class in person. Uh, this has taught me to appreciate. like what the teachers do on the everyday. Um, but if I were to go back to school and it was online again, I feel like I wouldn't survive. I feel like I probably, or maybe I would survive, but I would like just barely survive.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me 1 second. My computer's dying. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for waiting. So thank you for sharing and answering the questions. Um, I know that sometimes it's difficult to talk about the pandemic and thinking back, but thank you. And now I just have a few questions like about demographic info. Um, so if you can give me your name,
My name
and
is
you can use a pseudonym.
my name is uh, Nathaniel.
Your age,
My age is 24.
your gender,
I'm a male.
um, the city where you're from,
Los Angeles, California.
the university you attend,
Woodbury University.
your year of study,
I'm a senior.
your racial and ethnic identity.
Hispanic, Latino, Hispanic.
Yeah. Um, are you currently employed? Yes or no?
No.
Um, are you first generation student?
Yes.
And are you a transfer student?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm gonna end the recording.